That's awesome, man. And like, talk about the national development program a little bit. What's kind of the process in terms? Because I read that your goal is to compete at the 2026 Olympic or Paralympic Games, correct?
Yeah.
So what's the between now and then? What's kind of that whole process like in terms of making that team and going through all of these camps and finalizing that?
So I've only been playing competitively like on a team for about 2.5 years now, and I got invited to go to Montreal last April for the next gen camp or development camp for Team Canada, and I guess I did well because I got back and they said you're on the development roster right now, and we'll pay for your training and ice, and you kind of work your way towards trying out each year, and if you make it, great, but if you don't, you're not going to be like tossed away, right? You're just going to be placed on that development roster to keep training and trying to crack that spot. So very fortunate enough to be in this position, and yeah, just gonna keep grinding away, right? I set that goal, and it's gonna be on my mind until the day comes.
Where is the Olympics in 2026?
It's in Italy.
Oh, that'll be nice.
That's a
Yeah,
good trip.
yeah.
What did your first competitive sled hockey game feel like? Like what was the feeling getting out there for the first time? And obviously you said earlier that, it's an aggressive, violent sport. So going out there with, I imagine a lot of these guys that have played for, a significant amount of time now, or at least a lot longer than you have, what did that feel like? And what was that experience like?
It was different, right? I think you're used to a higher speed, right? It's a slower game, but at the same time, you're also just as you are slower, right? Technically, so I got to think the game a little bit differently. And I
Okay.
remember my first shift, puck got dumped in, and I was going to do a breakout, right? And I tried to stop and start, but you can't necessarily do that. Like one guy was coming after me, I was just going to stop and go the other way, right? And I remember stopping, and the kid didn't stop, and he just smoked me, right? Like I flipped back, and I think I got the puck and almost scored. But I'm like, all right, different game, got to think differently. So I just like did never stopped again, just always kept turning and doing that. So I'm like, all right, so it's a learning curve.
Man, that's crazy. And man, I mean, I thought the sleds would go at a pretty high rate of speed. I mean, those are like little missiles on ice, basically, like
They are,
coming
some
at
of
you,
them are fast, yeah, like double amps. I think the fastest guy on Team Canada. So McDavid's lap was what, 13 seconds, 13 and a half.
something like that.
Fastest lap. So the fastest guy on the sled team in Canada was like 17 seconds. So I mean, you can still rip quite
Oh,
fast. It's just
Yeah.
like you can't really stop on a dime. Otherwise, the person with momentum is going to crush you. So it's yeah, it's something I'm working on, but yeah, it's definitely aggressive.
Do you use like how do you control the sled? Is it in terms of stopping and changing direction? Do you have to use like the picks a lot to change direction, or is it kind of you're using your you know your core strength, I guess, or kind of how does that?
It's a mix. Like for me, everyone kind of plays to their disability in the best way they can. So for
Okay,
double amps, right, they're not going to have to use their hands as much because they have such a small surface area and they're not using too much. They can use their hips way more. But for a taller guy like me, I'm going to have to use my sticks and kind of lean and try to find my edge without doing too much leaning. So it's all about knowing your edges as best you can. So for me, it's a lot of upper body strength and picking. So it's so much different, but again, I enjoy a good challenge.
it looks wild, like I said earlier. I mean, it looks like an insane sport.
We can definitely set some up to get you guys on the ice and sleds. I think that would be super fun.
That'd be awesome. I'd be down for that for sure.
Absolutely.
yeah. Is there many guys in the Calgary area that you meet up with and just practice with on the side, or is it kind of more of the big training camps where you guys all meet up in the same city and work on your craft?
Yeah, so we'll have a lot of like the national team for provincial team guys come down to Calgary usually. But again, it just sometimes when you find free ice, you find free ice because it can be hard to come by. So you hear, oh, stand up hockey or shinny or beer league or whatever. Do you want to come out? And you're like, well, yeah. Like, so you're gonna pop out on any free ice you can. And again, I think you can learn from any ice time regardless of sledge. I've been out there with little kids, bigger kids, right, just skating around, having to try and keep up to the pace, which is nice. But again, just a whole nother realm of sport.
And how often are you competing? Like how often are these, the high level games that you're in for Team Alberta? And
We actually don't play a lot of games. We do training camps once a month, either in Edmonton or Calgary, and then we play in May a big tournament against all the other provinces, and that's our games, right? Like the states
Wow.
have it better, they have the funding, so they play 70, 80 games a season. Up here in Canada, we're lucky to get 6 or 7 games a season. So
Really?
yeah, it's a huge discrepancy, and I think that's some of the things we're trying to work on and trying to build.
So in the US, do they have more teams because they have more funding, or how does that work? How are they able to play so many more games?
So they have more players,
Okay.
more funding from their NHL respective teams. So like for example, the new Las Vegas sled hockey team, I think their budget yearly is like 250K, right, to play games, equipment, all that stuff. And so they have the numbers, they have the funding, they have the big giant talent pool. A lot of them are ex-military, so they're double amps,
Oh
which is what
shit.
you kind of want to be in the sport. Right, they're going to be faster, they're going to be more agile. It's kind of the player you want to be. And up here in Canada, we don't really have the numbers, so we kind of lack a little bit. So the only way we can kind of catch up to them is through our fitness and trying to make the most out of every ice time.
Jeez, imagine like a big yoked up former Navy SEAL flying at you with a
Mm-hmm.
ice torpedo with blades on the bottom of it, man. I'd be like, I'm out.
Oh yeah, like these guys are like born to kill, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
how scary that is. Like these guys don't care. They're in it to win and pretty much taking out anything in their way.
So contact is you're allowed to hit. Like to what degree are you allowed to is like hitting and contact allowed in sled?
Full bore, right? Like obviously without the head contact, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I've seen hits where double amps are getting flipped into the glass, and guys in the air like flipping back. Like it's nuts, right? Because something you can't really stop, right? If you're in a sled and you can only go
Yeah.
forward, and you get hit this way, you're going back. There's no way you can just turn out of it or stop, right?
So how would you brace for a hit in sled hockey? Because obviously it would have to be like you just said, completely different than stand up.
Yeah, you like drive your pick into the ice and hope the guy isn't stronger than you.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's violent.